Hi everyone, welcome to our first DeFi Exchange. My name is Michael Mendes, head of DeFi Tech, and today we have Dmitriy, who heads up Kord.Fi, which is an exciting project, DeFi project on the Tezos blockchain. Dmitriy, great to have you. How are you doing on that side?
Great, Michael. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. So Dmitriy, tell us a little bit about your background and then how you essentially started and kicked off Kord.Fi.
Yeah, sure. So I have a math background and I started my career in traditional finance, working as a quant and leading a market making desk at a major brokerage. So then I was also in Tezos since the early days, but mostly passively looking at things. And then I was very excited when liquidity baking launched, but I was hesitant to actually invest much in it because in order to invest in liquidity baking, you need to invest like equal proportions of Tez and Bitcoin. So I probably should say, what is liquidity baking? Liquidity baking is a decentralized exchange contract between two assets, Tez and Bitcoin, which is subsidized by the Tez protocol itself. So the yield is very sustainable. So I was hesitant to use it as it is because I didn't want to exchange that to Bitcoin a lot. And I also saw that some other guys were not eager to invest in it because they just wanted to hold Bitcoin and the Tezos looked like too risky for them. And I thought that it would be great to connect these two types of users, like conservative Bitcoin holders can just lend their BTC to some more aggressive Tezos enthusiasts who can borrow BTC from them and combine with their own Tez and invest into liquidity baking. So that's basically how the Kord.Fi started.
So Kord.Fi is a leveraged liquidity baking, essentially.
Yeah. So it allows you to leverage your Tezos or Bitcoin holdings and earn like increased yield in liquidity baking. So, for example, if the regular unleveraged liquidity baking yield right now is like 10%, you can leverage it to like at least 20% use our protocol by borrowing Tez or Bitcoin from the pool, from our people, because you can borrow them cheaper than the yield you get from liquidity baking.
And let's maybe talk about, we're talking a bit about yield there, essentially how important real yield is moving forward in DeFi overall. Kord.Fi is actually all real yield. So let's maybe just talk about real yield, what it means, and maybe you can kind of position that.
Yeah, sure. So as you've correctly mentioned, Kord.Fi is like 100% real yield, meaning that all the yield is paid in either Tez or Bitcoin tokens. So why real yield is like important concept? Because since like the DeFi summer, there were a lot of like DeFi protocols which paid yield in their own tokens. So they could advertise yield in like hundreds or thousands or like tens of thousands %. But then all that yield was in a constantly depreciating token. So when you actually look at what you receive, you can actually even lose money because the token is depreciating much faster than the yield you receive for the protocol. So in order to like compare apples to apples, it's important to distinguish between protocols which pay yield in like real assets and with the ones which pay fancy currency.
Maybe let's even dive into it a bit further in terms of on the Bitcoin side, because that's more passive. So maybe let's talk about, if you don't mind, let's talk a little bit about the Bitcoin yield. So Bitcoin holders that are moving into our ecosystem, what's the potential for them? Like, how can they make use of the Kord.Fi platform?
So like the most straightforward use case would be to just lend their Bitcoin. So while lending Bitcoin, they can receive about 3% APY per year. So which is like conservative number, but this is real yield. The risks are like almost non-existent, and the yield is paid in Bitcoin, so it is 100% real yield. And as Bitcoin holders probably know, it is higher than they can get on other lending protocols, on Ethereum, for example. So it's fairly attractive. It's a very attractive proposition, I'd say. And the pool is also quite big at the moment. So we have more than 90 BTC in the pool. So it is growing, but already substantial. So it's not. So you can also fit like the yield wouldn't drop too high. If you, for example, lend like 10 BTC there. Yeah.
In actual fact, if last seeing, I mean, Kord.Fi had, as time of recording, close to 5.5 million in TVL, and just in terms of growth, it has grown quite dramatically over the last few months. So obviously a lot more trust in the product, in the actual project, and therefore users are willing to give it a lot more capital to actually essentially take on these returns. So that's fantastic to see. Dmitry, let's talk a little bit about the next step for Kord.Fi, which is even more exciting in my view. We're trying to be a lot more trader-centric and trader-focused. Kord.Fi is going to be releasing Power Perpetuals. Now, Power Perpetuals has been around for a while in terms of a concept, but let's talk through what are Power Perpetuals and what it means for our trader ecosystem.
So Power Perpetuals is the next product we intend to launch very soon. So what it actually is a Power Perpetual? So it's a token which follows the square price of the asset. So for example, if you have like BTC USD price, so if BTC USD price rises 2 times, then the square BTC USD token would rise 4 times. So just BTC USD squared. Why is this product good and useful? So first of all, it is like a great leverage because it's like squared leverage. Yeah, you can earn much more than compared to floating like linear leverage position, and of course the just leverage position itself. It is also very nice as you don't actually have any liquidation risk, because you just buy the square token through our platform through the CFMM. So you just hold this token, so you can't really be liquidated. It also has some advantages compared to a leveraged linear token on the downside. So, for example, when the downside move occurs, the squared leverage token holds in value less than the linear leverage token, and as I already mentioned, it doesn't have any liquidation risk. So the only downside is that you need to pay the funding in order to hold this position. And so if the market is chopping for a long time, then it might not be the best position to hold the square token.
So how do you take advantage in a more volatile time? What would be the alternative? To go short?
Yes. So if you see that the market is choppy and you expect it to continue to be like range bound for quite some time, then you can actually short the square token. In that case, you would receive the funding rate, which can be quite high, actually up to like 50% APY, and so this and you can actually like earn this yield, and this is in case with the leverage farming, this would also be like real yield. So this can be quite attractive, and this product is fairly similar to like option selling or like leverage vault product. The good thing is that this product is 100% on chain, so you don't have any custody or credit risk.
Yeah, which is becoming more and more important as we see things evolving now in the traditional finance market, let's call it, or CeFi. And the overlap between leveraged, or let's say the overlap between Power Perpetuals and existing Kord.Fi. Maybe talk us through how those two actually work well together.
Yeah, it's actually fairly interesting because the squared payoff is obviously non-linear, which allows for interesting hedges.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, you can hedge the impermanent loss risk of the CFML contract by buying and holding the square token. So one use case that we see now is the hedging of the impermanent loss of liquidity baking debts. So you would be able to open like leverage position in liquidity baking, and then hedge the impermanent loss, which would result in like almost linear position in Tether or Bitcoin, while you would also receive quite nice yield from the baking side.
Gotcha. So I think there'll be a whole bunch of questions in terms of different strategies and things which can be utilized in the ecosystem. Will Kord.Fi, essentially with Power Perpetuals, have documentation about various strategies? Is that what you're looking to propose to the community as well? Like, so that traders can get more, can first learn a lot more about Power Perpetuals and how to utilize it in their strategies?
Yeah, sure. So we like our first stop is to have like a nice UI that hopefully most of the strategies would be evident just looking at the payoff that you get. Then we also are working actually on the documentation before the release, and hopefully it would answer most of the questions. And finally, we plan to be active on Twitter with probably some threads explaining the different use cases and how you can actually earn some money with our protocols.
So it's going to be quite exciting because essentially Kord.Fi becomes a lot more, let's call it trader orientated, you know, understanding what traders needs and wants, and start offering different product to traders with all these various assets. Maybe let's talk through some of those with the initial release. Do you have any particular assets in mind which will be launched first as a Power Perpetual?
Yeah, so we plan to start with like 3 squared pairs for Power Perpetuals, which should be BTC USD, XTZ USD, and XTZ BTC. So I think these are like the most important pairs on Tezos at the moment. So BTC USD is obviously important due to recent ETF rumors and the possibility of another Bitcoin bull run. So I think we would be the only protocol which actually offers squared BTC token in entire DeFi space. So hopefully our users would be able to capitalize on it once it happens. Then XTZ BTC is obviously important because you would be able to hedge the permanent loss risk. And XTZ USD is like obviously good if the price goes up. So you would enjoy the squared leverage on that, which is very, very nice.
Yeah. Before we close up, I mean, how do people get hold of you? Like, are you able to maybe share all your social handles, and we'll post it up with our video as well. But maybe if you can talk through what's the best place where people can contact you.
Yeah, sure. So best place would probably be Twitter or Telegram. So Telegram is a bit more tricky, so better to just write into our channel rather than DMs, because DMs are sometimes fun. So Telegram channel or Twitter. I'm a bit less active in Discord, but also try to answer everyone.
Perfect. What we'll do with the video, we'll share all your details over the chat as well, Dmitry. So thank you for that. And where will the community and us be seeing you next?
Yeah, so of course I will be speaking at TezDev DeFi panel. So we'll be happy to see you all there. I think like last year TezDev was exciting, and I think this year would be even better. So
amazing. So just for everyone on the call, that will be 21st of July and in Paris. So we're very excited for that. And Dmitry, fantastic to have you on our first DeFi exchange. Really excited to see the future of Kord.Fi, in particular with power perpetuals and how that will evolve our ecosystem. So thank you so much for hopping on a call with me today.
Thank you very much, Michael. It was great to speak here.
Have a lovely day. Ciao.